Good morning, everybody. An unusual broadcast for me because I am broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook. The dog walks have become more frequent, but usually I'm putting them on Patreon now, so I'll record them and put them on to sometimes 3 a week if I can get them done. So the dog walks are still alive and kicking, but they didn't really fit with a lot of the other YouTube content that we were doing. And so Patreons for as little as I think £3 a month can get access to those. So I thought I would do a full and live one this morning just for everybody in case you enjoyed the dog walks and haven't been getting them, so you now know where they are. They are on Patreon, so I'll put a link in the description for that if you wish to go and check them out. I do regularly do things like starting 11 predictions and other bits and bobs as well. So yeah, go check that out. But picking up this morning, and good morning to anyone that is on board. I know it's pretty hard when all of a sudden I go live at 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning when I haven't done it for about 4 months. But I wanted to have a quick chat about the fact that we're a third of the way through the season. And it doesn't seem possible, does it? A third of the way through the season already, like 30, I think we played 15 games and it's actually 15 and a third. So we're about 30% of the way through the season already. So we have a pretty good idea of what the season's going to hold now. And, you know, early doors, when you're in the league, you're looking at things and you're doing well, but there's only 6 games played. And you say, well, you know, it'll start taking shape after 10 games. And then you get to 10 games and you think, well, you know, there's still like more than 3/4 of the season to go. And then you get to 15 and you've begun to level out a little bit. And I think, you know, after 10 games, I probably hoped that my kind of third of the season assessment, which is what this is, if you like, I probably hoped that it would be a little bit more positive. And you know, I sat down this morning and thought, well, I'll do this video, and I don't know how long the dog will want to walk for, but it's a bright morning, the wind's not too bad, hopefully the sound's good, I'll have an opportunity to do a bit of talking. And I looked at the situation that we're in at the moment and thought, why do I feel a little bit negative about it? And I've thought a bit negative the last couple of games. I think because we're not scoring goals, and you know, you go away and get thumped 3-0, and then you get into the arguments with people online. You know, your stats don't mean anything, and why you citing stats to us when you know, we clearly weren't better than Rotherham because we lost 3-0, and you think, oh, here we go again. But actually, you sit and look at the numbers, and the numbers are quite impressive. 15 games played, 25 points. So assuming that we picked up points at the same rate over the course of the rest of the season, and bear in mind we've just had a so-called blip, so you're talking about us having a good run and then a blip and then another good run and then a blip to the end of the season. That would be, you know, what we've had already. After 45 games, we'd have 75 points. So assuming that we pick up an extra 1 or 2, which would be the average, be 76 or 77. 77 would have been enough to get us in the playoffs in 2023-24 when we had that late surge and ended up losing on the final day to Portsmouth. We finished, I think, on 75 points that season. So statistically, pound for pound, we're on course for the same number of points as we got in that season. But that season we had a phenomenal run post-Christmas, like an outrageously good run. Where we only lost, I think, twice. Was it Wigan and Portsmouth? And we drew with Reading. And they were the games that really cost us, and drew with Stevenage. Other than that, we were winning, and we were winning good, and we were winning well. So to be averaging the same as that season, I think is good going. I think that despite the fact that we have been on a relatively average run over the last few games, and we lose at Leyton Orient, and probably we did deserve to lose that. We lost heavily at Rotherham. Could have argued that a draw would have been a fair result. You know, a lot of Rotherham fans who have watched that will laugh at this, and there's people who have criticised us saying that the stats said this and the stats said that. On the balance of play, I don't think that Rotherham were miles better than us. They were a little bit sharper and a little bit quicker, but we created chances as well. And I think if you go to the Peterborough game, for instance, and I know Pete, you'll laugh at this, some of you, but our XG against Peterborough was lower than it was against Rotherham. We did to Peterborough what Rotherham did to us. And we were kind of laughing a little bit at Darren Ferguson or at Darren McAntony saying there wasn't anything in it, and we got the run of the green, we got our chances, and they bounced in and they didn't. And that's exactly what happened at Rotherham. The difference is the quality of chance that we created probably wasn't there. It certainly wasn't the same as Stevenage and Exeter, where we created good quality chances early doors and missed them. But I'm not worried. I wasn't worried about us in terms of not scoring goals. And some media outlets have to be. So some media outlets, because they rely heavily on clicks, and I do a little bit more now, hands up with the adverts, but I try and get them with volume, not by sensationalism. But one or two outlets that do want the clicks and do want the traffic, sort of saying it's however many games without a goal now, and is there a crisis, and is this they were talking about the mid-season collapse when we'd won one, drawn one, lost one, rather than it being the back-to-back back-to-back league defeats, but the 2 league defeats in 3 with Orient and Rotherham either side of Bradford. I never worried because we were creating chances. I worried we weren't putting them away, and I worried that 1 or 2 of our players were looking a little bit ring rusty in front of goal. And even beating Barnsley 2-0, it hasn't completely allayed those fears. I mean, Frankie Okawankwo couldn't have had an easier chance, but he did miss one comparable a couple of minutes beforehand. But we created. And so we've got to where we are in the league right now. The wind up is terrible, by the way. If the sound's not good, please let me know. But we've got to a point in the season where you can take stock and you can read a little bit more into where we are than you could have done perhaps 3 or 4 weeks ago. And that lack of goals over the last few games isn't something that I see continuing throughout. Under Mark Kennedy, and to a degree under Michael Appleton in his it's his 3rd season, but I always call it his 2nd season. I don't count his 2019-20 as a full season. But Appleton's last season and Kennedy's only full season, we weren't creating chances. And when we were creating chances, they weren't as clear cut. And in the end, we were massively outperforming XG, and that was a concern. I remember having that concern, and people can go back and have a look if they want. Blackpool and Wickham, where we didn't create enough chances to win those games 3-0, but we won them 3-0, which shows you on any one given afternoon, you can have low XG and high goals scored, but it does even out. And what happened? We got to a point where we were losing 1-0 to Burton, or we were struggling to break other teams down, and none come off the top of my head. But we stopped taking the few minimal, half-decent chances we created. But they're not minimal and half-decent, and they're not minimal at the moment. We've still been looking at double-digit shots, even in the games that we've lost 3-0. So we've still had that little attacking purpose, which takes away some of the worry at this third of the way through the season. Another positive, I think, if you were to take this campaign, turn it on its head, so open with a 3-0 home defeat against Rotherham, and I'm talking now after beating Red 2-0 at home after a run of decent results, we'd be looking at 6 going, well, there's a lot to be positive about, isn't there? We struggled at the beginning, losing to Orient and losing to Exeter and losing to Rotherham, but since then we've done really well, and we've beaten Luton and we've beaten Peterborough and run a little bit of a run. And while yes, momentum is a factor in football, I think it's probably not as much of a factor as people think. You can have a bit of momentum, but if you don't have the quality and you don't have the game plan, that momentum will fade. You can have a blip, but if you do have the quality and you do have the game plan, that shines through. And the 2 classic examples of this at this stage of the season are Doncaster Rovers and Bolton Wanderers. Because at the beginning of the season, Bolton weren't winning games. There was question marks about Steven Schumacher, and now they're absolutely flying. And they're going to be, them and Stockport are going to be challenging at the top of the table. But they were lower mid-table early doors. But that was their blip. That was their downward momentum. But it didn't carry on, did it? They got in a spiral, but they had the quality and the fight to get out of it. Whereas Doncaster did really well early doors, but that momentum didn't keep carrying them forward. Eventually, they lost. I mean, they beat Bradford, bear in mind, early September. I think it was their last home win. But since then, they've tumbled and they've spiraled, because you can have a little push, but momentum will only ever take you so far. And I think some people looked at Rotherham and I mean, there was a comment on social media around Michael Skubala doesn't have what it takes to get out of a bad run. And that absolutely baffled me because he's done it actually time and again. We weren't on a good run when he first took over and he struggled over the Christmas, but we got out of that in spectacular fashion and surged towards the playoffs. Last season, we started well. We had a bad run over Christmas, which we did, but we finished quite strongly as well. If you look at it, our form at the end of the season was top 10, maybe top 6 form, especially when you look at the teams we played. We played, I think, our last 8 games, 7 of them were against teams who ended up finishing in the top 7. So he was able to turn that form around. So I have no doubt whatsoever that if we have a blip, we are in a good position to turn it around. And actually, as bad as it sounds, being out of the FA Cup probably helps because now we'll have a Saturday off where we can work on looking at the Christmas period. And that's the biggie, isn't it? I mean, we've had a couple of really, really bad Christmas periods of late. 1 minute. Come on, boy, we'll go back. We've had a couple of bad Christmas periods. It always used to be November under Keith Alexander. It's Christmas under Michael Skubala, and it has been pretty dire over the Christmas periods. I don't know how many points he's got. I did my maths the other day. I think it's something like 2 points over Christmas. It's not pretty. So that's what we need to prepare for. We've got Cardiff over that time. We've got Bolton over that time. I'm pretty sure we've got Huddersfield over that time. I mean, it looks so tough that's where that's the next point of the season. You get to a third of a way through the season, and you're all good. You can take stock. Are you going to be in and around the top 6? Don't know for definite, but it's good to be there now. But you get to Christmas where you play on the 20th and the 26th and the 28th and the 1st and then the 5th. You play 5 games. It's a huge chunk of the season in the space of 2 weeks, and a lot can turn. You think we're a third of the way through the season now, but in the space of 2 weeks, we play a third of the number of games that we've already played in the whole season. So it's massive. Christmas is massive. So having a week off before Christmas, and it's not directly before, it's the 7th, I get it. But that's actually pretty big because it will give us an opportunity to look at those teams. It will give us an opportunity to work a little bit on those specific games. And I think we're better when we work on the opposition rather than ourselves. And I know that isn't something that all fans want to hear. We're clearly better without the ball. We clearly need to sharpen up in terms of having the ball. But when we do have the ball, we are quick, we are direct. It's not big lump to a big man and pick up the pieces. It's in the channels. It's trying to get runners in behind where we need to. We can play it on the floor when teams come and sit back, which we did against Exeter and we did against Stevenage. So I think having that time on the training ground, as I said, I think the same with Michael Appleton. And I did some work last year. I did an article last year on midweek fixtures and how we are better on a Saturday after a free Tuesday than we are when we play a Tuesday. And I think that's probably down to the way that we prepare and the way that we have to prepare. If you're Bolton and you've got Cozy Dewberry and you've got all those players, the embarrassment of riches, you go out on a Tuesday and you go out on a Saturday, your game plan's probably the same. Get the ball here, get the ball there, do this, do that. If you're us, where you have strong depth, but it's not depth of individual flair and talent, it's cogs in a machine rather than kind of that expressive forward battering ram, if that makes sense. And when it's cogs in a machine, you probably have to be a little bit more strategic. You can't go in there throwing punches. You're having to absorb punches and know what's going to happen and what's going to come and know where to exploit more expensive squads. So I think that we are better when games are not coming thick and fast. And that means, obviously, Christmas is the next big red flag. But I'm not here to talk about the next big red flag. I'm here to talk about the last 15 games or so. I think in terms of cup competitions, there's no complaints from the first third of the season. The Carabao Cup is a couple of wins, big night at the Bank, did ourselves proud in front of the telly cameras, went out bravely, done and dusted. But it is done and dusted now. You lose you lose at Rotherham, and all of a sudden Michael Skubala's clueless again. There was people at the front gesticulating, shouting at him, spitting with rage on Saturday. It's sixth in League One. We took the world champions to within a whisker. We were leading them at half time. And here's people calling for Michael Skubala's head. It's like, and they were youngsters, they were younger. They were probably like 15 to 25. They probably don't fully understand what suffering as a Lincoln fan used to be like. Even post Keith Alexander, pre-relegation to the league, it wasn't great, was it? To the National League under Peter Jackson and Steve Tilson and Chris Sutton. My God, if you wanted to get angry, don't get angry when you're sixth in League One. We shouldn't be happy at losing 3-0. I get that. But, that, I call it recency bias. The questions that start being raised less than, 2 months after you've taken the world champions to within a whisker and you've beaten Peterborough 3-0, biggest win at London Road in our history, and beaten Luton 3-1, who were a Premier League club last year, not last season, but last year. They were only relegated last April. It is what it is, isn't it? So a third of the way through the season, you've got to look at the injury situation and assess how are we doing there, because if you did that 2 years ago with Tyler Walker out and Ben House out and Jack Vale out, we were in a bad position. If you go back 3 years, we didn't have any strikers. I think Hopper was out at that point. We were starting up top with a Delican and Ted Bishop and stuff like that. I mean, oh my Lord. When you think about it now, think, how the hell did we ever get through that? But it was, people will say to me now, well, why weren't you more critical at the time? Well, look where we are now. Do you know what I mean? The plan was always there. We were never in relegation danger, particularly in those seasons. Maybe a little bit on Michael Appleton in his second season. But why be critical when you can see a bigger picture? But there we are. We're just a propaganda arm, aren't we, of the football club today? So now back to this injury situation. Well, you don't normally go into mid-November thinking we're getting our players back and you're still sixth in the table. So when we have a little injury crisis, and we've got one at the minute, a little one, Ben House out, Rico Hackett out, as of Tuesday morning, no Jack Moylan, no Dom Jeffries, no Oisin Gallagher. So 5 out as a minimum. And then you come through Tuesday. I mean, Oisin had a really good game. Dom Jeffries playing in central midfield, which is where I can see him being deployed more and more. Really good game. Jack Moylan just on the pitch, getting minutes. Didn't do anything outstanding, didn't need to, just needed to get the minutes. Finn Barbrook, I think he'll go back to Ipswich, if I'm honest, in January. But he looked outstanding. Eric Ring playing in a 10 and then playing out wide. And playing, I think, at fullback in the end. Oscar Thorne looking lively. It's a deep squad. We're not worrying about who's going to play up top on Saturday. We're debating who's going to play up top on Saturday. And so to get a third of the way through the season and still have that, I think is great. And look, I'm obviously being positive about this because I think we're in a really good place, but there have been worrying signs when we hit that blip. Do I think as playing Justin Abikru up top when you could play Rob Street and Thorne and Ring on the flanks or something, didn't really convince me, but Abikru did well against Bradford. Anonymous really against Rotherham. But we've got Street who can play there, Collins who can play there. I'd rather we had one of our players play number 9. And I think that's been kind of the way that we've gone over the past few seasons, is give our players a run out rather than opposition players, like lone players. And it was evidence with Jovan last year where people were being really critical of Jovan. He was keeping Bailey Cadamarteri out of the team, and look what he's now. A 1.2, 1.5 million pound striker in the Championship. So you've got to kind of prio your own, but at the same time you ain't going to get any money for James Collins, but he does score. And I think he's gone 10 games without scoring until Tuesday night, which is the longest as a League One or League Two player in his career. If it had been 11, that would have been the longest, but this is the joint longest. I think he went 10 once before when he was at Derby. So good to see him back among the goals. For me, the next third of the season, I want to see him playing 9 much more. I understand why, when we need a little bit more pace, a little bit more running in behind, he doesn't offer that as such. But if we want the running in behind, let's have Thorne and Ring doing that on either flank, or indeed Hackett, or indeed Street if we have to, and keep James Collins in the middle for when those balls comes flashing in. When the ball comes flashing in, who do I want on the end of it? Collins. Street, Draper, yep, happy to see them coming in. Both valuable members of the squad. Draper probably needs a goal. Street probably needs to play through the middle. But for me, Collins. I mean, I've got Rings the 10 at the minute. House to come back in, Moylan edging back in, Thorne there, Okawankwo with his goal, Abikru can play across anywhere there. We've got depth. We knew we had depth. Sometimes that depth is overrated because sometimes you get an EFL Trophy game and you go, oh, I start to see our squad depth, and then nobody states a claim. And we had that a couple of years ago. I remember waiting to see the fringe players and how they got on, and we were poor. I can't remember who against. Morecambe away, Accrington possibly. You think, well, nobody there staked a claim. The EFL Trophy this year, they have. Finn Barbrook played every minute of our EFL Trophy game. He hasn't got a look in the league. Where do you play him? The Grandals has been excellent up to this point of the season. Tom Bayliss has been very good. Even Bartholomew, record signing, done what he needed to do. Nothing outstanding as he acclimatises. Dom Jeffries is just coming back now. So, third of the way through the season, I think we're in a good position. I think we look good. I think we feel good. I think if we can get over the blip on Saturday, it'll feel a lot better. And I was almost tempted to wait until after Saturday to do this, because 16 games, you could almost say, well, we're past the third of the way through now as well. But I'm hoping to go away on Monday, so I probably wouldn't have had time to do it. So if we can get something on Saturday, first of all, if we can win, it'll be our first win over Doncaster at Stinsel Bank since 1997. 1997, 18th of November 1997. I only remember it because it was the day before my 19th birthday. So it's been a huge period of time since we've beaten Donny, and I think they're there to be beaten. They'll be a good side. They work hard. They're honest under McCann. They did really well last season. They're just tailing off a little bit now. We need to get back on the horse. A win tomorrow, particularly with a lot of teams that are not playing, puts us firmly back in that pack. And that will be nice going into Wycombe away next week, and then again another Tuesday off. The other thing I think to pick up on is the key players, who's been kind of player of the season so far, a third of the way through the season. There's a few that you could pick, but it'd be hard not to go for Conor McGrandles, who I think has been excellent. Not massive shout out to Sonny Bradley, who was made losing our captain and leader feel like it was just, yeah. And that's no disrespect to Pordy. Pordy was a good servant for us, good player for us, did really well for us. But it isn't like we've missed him. And that sounds, but it isn't the way that Sonny Bradley's played. It's been just, okay, yeah, well, that's like for like replacement. Nice one. Not quite player of the season, though. And I do think Conor McGrandles is the other one that stood out. Tom Hamer, even though he's been in and out of the side, by the way, player rating wise, been very, very good. You guys really like Hamer. I really like Hamer. I think he's got, he's fly on me. He's flexible. He's really good. Yeah. So I think he's up there. But yeah, Conor McGrandles for me. Yeah, attacked by flies. It's meant to be November. So there we are. That is my review, my third of the way through the season review. And I want to write something up about this for readers as well. So fingers crossed I may get that done. I am hoping to go away next week. Fingers crossed. Just for a couple of days. It's been a pretty rough few weeks. It's why I'm not doing the podcast or anything at the minute. So I just need to reset before we come back for the Christmas period. But as I've said, a rare live dog walk. If you're watching this, you enjoy them and wonder where the hell they've been, I do 1, 2, sometimes even 3 a week if I can over on the Patreon. It's £3 a month. And with some changes that have been made recently to my working situation, I am pushing it a little bit. So yeah, they are on there, and I've now found a way to store them on there as well. So they are, all the old ones will be available. This one will be available as well. Cool. Thank you for those of you who are Patreons. I really appreciate your support. Thank you to those who have taken the time to watch me this morning. I'll leave this on the normal channels available to watch back. Let me know if you agree with my comments and up the imps.